Well, the guy behind these can kicks back videos is ready to kick something else because Nick Troiano says the CBO can estimate all the debtor deficit numbers it wants. We still owe, and he and young people in general are still angry they're going to get stuck with the bill. He's so serious and so furious about this issue that he's running for Congress as an independent in Pennsylvania to prove his case. He's 24 now, but he'll be 25 if he makes it. So he'll just make the cut for the minimum age you have to be.
That's right.
It's a bit of a big move because you're doing so as an independent, not as a Democrat or Republican. Why?
Well, our country faces a series of large, known and growing sustainability challenges, and because of how dysfunctional our politics have become, we're not able to address them. And a lot of that has to do with how partisan and polarized our politics have gotten and the influence that special interests have. So I think running as an independent candidate and not accepting contributions from special interests would position me to be a good representative of the people of the 10th District.
But you have to get a lot of signatures, right? Where's that process?
That's right. We have a great team of volunteers out collecting the about 3,500 signatures we'll need to get my name on the ballot and give people a third choice besides just the Democrats and Republicans.
Then the question would be, would you be included in the debates or anything like that? It's always tough for independent candidates.
It's tough, but I think it's worth it because something needs to shake up a political system that doesn't seem to be working for us right now.
When you were doing these ads to come up with the ads, how did you get Alan Simpson? How did you get Alice Rivlin to do it? Because they look ridiculous, but they did it, and it does catch your attention. And I thought, were they drunk? Did he get them at a weak moment? Did he have photographs of them? What did you do?
Well, some of these great national leaders that we were able to work with understood the importance of trying to reach all Americans, and especially young Americans, on this important issue of our national debt, which I think is the biggest that's facing our country right now.
I mean, they're fantastic just to get out to them. How have young people responded, or do they know what it's about?
Well, I think young people realize that we have an $18 trillion tab right now headed our way.
And do they realize that?
Yes, but I think the problem is that many people, not just young people, don't see that either political party is offering real solutions. You know, Republicans aren't willing to engage with Democrats on the revenue side. Democrats aren't willing to engage with Republicans on reforms to our social insurance program. So we've been stuck in gridlock when we really need proposals like the Simpson-Bowles Commission put forward to find common ground.
Equal pain. But so you would be open to entitlement reform, even if it meant a guy of your generation might not get as much out of Medicare or Social Security as, let's say, an old fart like me.
Well, what's clear is that the longer that we wait to make certain decisions, the more painful it's going to be and the more of the burden that future generations will have to bear. So we need to restrain spending in our major entitlement programs while protecting those in and near retirement. We need to raise some more revenue through reforming our tax code, which can actually lower rates for all Americans. And we need to make real investments in our economy so we can be competitive in the 21st century.
So what did you think of the IRS now reportedly looking at taxing perks, the perks that people get at work?
Well, I think that in our tax code, there is a disproportionate amount of loopholes that benefit the well-off and well-connected, and those ought to be closed, and that's how we ought to raise some additional revenue.
On top of the hiking the rates the way the rich is seen, you would stick it to them one more time?
Well, I think that the current Congress has done the exact opposite of what we need to do, including my congressman. They've slashed investments in the future. They've raised more revenue by hiking tax rates instead of reforming the tax code, and they haven't meaningfully addressed any of the major entitlement programs in our country.
How would you do that as an independent? Because you'd be, you know, in a pretty big minority of one. So I'm wondering who you side with for voting purposes. Would it be the Republicans? Would it be?
Well, my interest really is in being the first step towards a more meaningful and broader political reform. Change can't happen overnight, but if I can be one voice for people who don't feel well represented by either party, that's worth it in 2014. And in 2016, why not have a dozen or 2 dozen independents running in viable districts across the country so that a caucus of the sensible center can actually deny both parties a majority in our Congress?
Well, there must be something, because when polled in your area, I mean, about just the idea of an unnamed independent candidate, I mean, it trounced the incumbent. The question is whether when they look at a young guy like you, said, well, we really think Nick's a great guy, has a good heart and all that, but he's just too young. What do you say?
Well, I think if you look at our current Congress, it's one of the oldest and longest serving Congresses we've ever had in our history, and it's also one of the most dysfunctional. So if there ever was a time for new ideas and a new approach, I think it's now, and I think people are open to it.
All right. What do you think of President Obama?
President Obama has disappointed me on the budget issue. His 2015 budget is a plan for the 2014 election. It's not a plan for the country over the next decade or two.
What do you think about John Boehner?
I think all of our congressional leaders need to be able to work to solve problems that are going to make the next generation better off, instead of just seeking what's best for their next election.
So you don't like either of them?
I think it's time that we had some leadership that was more concerned for the people than their parties or politics, and I'm not seeing that from any of our leaders right now.
No, I admire it. Whether a lot of people agree or disagree with you, it takes a lot of gumption to just up and run for Congress to sort of walk the talk. We'll see what happens. Nick Troiano, thank you very, very much.
Thanks for having me.